The scalpel's cold glint caught the sterile light as the doctor leaned in. And in that frozen heartbeat, I realized the life we'd built on whispers and white lies was about to shatter like glass under boot heels. "Push, Elena. Push for us?" Dr. Ramirez urged, her voice a lifeline in the chaos of beeps and muffled cries. But my grip on Riley's hand turned vice-tight, nails digging into skin as if I could anchor us both against the storm I saw brewing in her eyes. And then, with a wail that pierced the veil between dreams and dawn, our daughter arrived. Not just a baby, but a reckoning, slick and squirming, forcing me to confront the truth we'd buried under promises of just until it's safe. The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under sodium lamps like veins pulsing with the city's restless heart. And I remember thinking, as Riley and I dashed from the coffee shop to our cramped Capitol Hill apartment, that this was the kind of night where secrets either drown or surface. We'd been together 3 years by then. Riley with her easy laugh that could disarm a room full of skeptics, and me, Elena, still navigating the choppy waters of transition in a world that sometimes felt like it was built for anyone but us. I was 28, post-op for a year, hormones humming through my veins like a low-grade electric current, turning my edges soft but my resolve steel. We'd met at a pride rally in the Fremont district, her handing out flyers for a queer youth shelter, me fresh out of a dead-end barista gig and hungry for something real. Temporary, we joked about everything back then. The lease on our one-bedroom walk-up, the tattoos we'd get someday, even the way we'd fallen into each other's arms after too many IPAs at the rendezvous. But kids, that was the big one. The temporary we'd sworn on a stack of dog-eared Audre Lorde books and a bottle of cheap Prosecco. Just until we're ready, Riley had said one autumn evening, her fingers tracing the faint scar along my jaw from the surgery that had finally aligned my body with the woman I'd always known I was. We'd been scrolling through fertility forums on my laptop, the screen's glow casting shadows that danced like ghosts across her freckled cheeks. Seattle's fog had pressed against the windows, muting the world outside, and in that cocoon, the idea bloomed: surrogacy. Not the cold, contractual kind with agencies and NDAs thicker than my old binder. No, we wanted someone we knew, someone who got it, who wouldn't flinch at the messiness of two women building a family in a country that still debated our right to exist. Enter Jamie. God, Jamie. She was Riley's cousin from Portland, the kind of free-spirited dyke who'd backpacked through the Cascades on a whim and volunteered at women's clinics because that's just what you do. 25. With a pixie-cut dyed electric blue and arms inked with ferns and feminist slogans, she crashed on our couch during a music festival weekend and never quite left the conversation. "You two are idiots if you don't do this," she declared over takeout pad thai, her green eyes sparkling with that infectious certainty. "I've got the parts, you've got the love. And hey, it'll be temporary. 9 months, boom. Auntie Jamie gets to spoil the kid rotten and jet off to her next adventure." We laughed it off at first, but the seed took root. Tests, talks, tears. By spring, Jamie was pregnant. Our embryo nestled inside her thanks to a donor we'd chosen from a catalog of smiling faces. Some anonymous artist sketch of what family could look like. Those early months were a blur of ultrasounds and ultra-sweet nothings. I'd wake to Riley's hand on my belly. No, not mine, but I'd imagine it anyway, pressing my palm to the phantom swell as if I could will the motherhood into my own skin. We drove Jamie to appointments in my beat-up Subaru, the three of us belting out Joni Mitchell on I-5, windows down despite the drizzle. "This is us," Riley would say, squeezing my thigh at stoplights, her thumb brushing the hem of my sundress. "Our little triad of trouble." Jamie rolled her eyes but grinned, popping sour candies to combat the nausea. "Temporary, remember? Don't get all mushy on me, Elena. I'm just the oven, you're the chef." I believed her. We all did. Seattle summers stretched lazy and long, lupin blooming wild along the trails we'd hike on weekends. Jamie's bump rounding out under oversized flannels borrowed from Riley's closet. We'd picnic at Gas Works Park, the Space Needle piercing the sky like a promise, and talk about names. Leora for light, Sage for wisdom, while fairies horned in the distance. My job at the indie bookstore on Broadway kept me grounded, shelving Queer Lit and recommending Fun Home to wide-eyed teens. but my mind wandered to nurseries and lullabies. Transition had been my rebirth, but this felt like Genesis. Riley worked shifts at the shelter, coming home smelling of rain and resolve, collapsing into me with stories of kids who'd found their footing because of places like hers. "We're building something unbreakable," she'd murmur into my neck, and I'd cling to that, to us, ignoring the faint tremor in her voice during late-night calls she'd take in the kitchen. Started small, the cracks. A text from Jamie one July afternoon. "Hey, mama-to-be, Riley's been weird. Snappy on the phone. You notice?" I brushed it off, stress. She said, "The shelter's funding drying up like the sound in low tide." But then the silences grew, Riley slipping out for walks that stretched into hours, her phone face down on the nightstand like a guilty verdict. I confronted her one evening over lukewarm stir-fry, the apartment thick with the scent of ginger and unspoken fears. "What's going on, Ree? Talk to me." She looked up, those hazel eyes I drowned in 100 times, now shadowed. "It's nothing, Elle. Just the weight of it all. The money, the what-ifs. We made love that night, slow and searching, her hands mapping my curves as if rediscovering territory. "I love you," she whispered, fierce against my ear. "This is temporary, the doubt. Not us." By August, Jamie's cravings had us raiding every late-night market from Pike Place to the U District, her laughter echoing as she demanded dill pickles dipped in ice cream. But Riley's absences piled up like unpaid bills. I'd find her staring out the window at the ferries chugging toward Bainbridge, a faraway look that twisted my gut. One night, after she'd stumbled and passed midnight reeking of gin, not our usual craft stuff, but something sharp and cheap, I lost it. "Who is she?" The words hung, accusatory, born from a whisper I'd overheard on her call 2 days prior. "I can't do this, not with her watching." Riley froze, then crumpled, tears carving tracks down her face. "It's not what you think. God, Elena, it's work, a donor from the shelter. She's complicated. Helping her out, that's all. Lies, layered like Seattle's perpetual overcast." But I swallowed them, because Jamie's next scan showed our girl kicking like a future Olympian, and who was I to poison that joy? Fall crept in with crimson maples shedding leaves like regrets, and we threw a baby shower at the shelter. Streamers and pastel rainbows, cupcakes frosted with tiny onesies. Jamie glowed, hand on her belly, regaling the crowd with tales of midnight kicks. Riley played host, charming as ever, but her arm around my waist felt obligatory, a performance for the aunties and volunteers. Later, in the bathroom stall, I retched, not from nerves, but from the hollow ache of loving someone who was slipping away. "Temporary?" I repeated to my reflection, splashing water on swollen eyes. The word tasted like ash. As Thanksgiving loomed, the betrayal crystallized. I'd borrowed Riley's jacket against the chill, fumbling in the pocket for my keys, and out tumbled a receipt. A motel on Aurora Avenue, the kind with neon signs flickering vacancy like a siren's call. Stamped 2 nights ago. Heart hammering, I scrolled her phone while she showered. Passcode still our anniversary, the trust we'd squandered. Messages, dozens to K. "Miss you. Can't stop thinking about last time." L doesn't suspect. K the donor. K, the 19-year-old runaway Riley had helped at the shelter. The one with haunted eyes and a story that mirrored my own pre-transition chaos. Temporary flings, she called them in her texts, but the photos, blurry, stolen moments in that same motel, screamed otherwise. I confronted her in the steam-hazed bathroom, phone thrust like evidence in a courtroom drama. "How long, Riley? How many temporaries before you gutted us?" She wrapped herself in a towel, not bothering to cover the vulnerability. "It started after the embryo transfer. The pressure. Panicked. She's nothing, Elle. A distraction. Nothing." The word landed like a slap. We argued through the night, voices rising until neighbors thumped the walls. Jamie's worried texts lighting up my screen unanswered. By dawn, Riley was gone. Duffel in hand, a note on the fridge. "Need space. Love you still. This isn't the end." But endings have a way of masquerading as pauses in the Pacific Northwest, where fog blurs the line between sea and sky. Winter clamped down on Seattle like a vice. The Olympics dusted in snow across the water, mocking our unraveling domesticity with their pristine indifference. Jamie's belly had ballooned into a testament to persistence, her waddle charming as she commandeered our couch for Netflix marathons of the L-word reruns, declaring, "If I'm gestating your spawn, I get veto power on rom-coms." I played along, forcing smiles over popcorn, but inside, I was a maelstrom. Transition had taught me resilience, the slow burn of becoming oneself amid stares and slurs. But this, betrayal from the woman who'd held my hand through every injection, every affirmation, it hollowed me out, left me staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin until dawn etched purple bruises under my eyes. Riley's space stretched into weeks, her texts sporadic apologies laced with pleas for forgiveness. "I'm seeing a therapist." Kay was a mistake, a cry for help I didn't know I needed. I'd read them at the bookstore counter between customers. The bells jingle a cruel punctuation to my grief. Part of me wanted to hurl the phone into the sound, watch it sync with our vows, but another part, the stubborn, hopeful core that had carried me through binders and blockers, clung to the Riley I'd met at that rally, the one who'd scrawled "You're valid" on my mirror in lipstick after a bad day. Temporary. Her note had echoed Jamie's promise, but now it felt like a curse, a loophole for cowards. Jamie noticed, of course. She had a sixth sense for bullshit, honed from years of clinic shifts dodging pro-life picketers. One December evening, as sleet tapped Morse code on the panes, she cornered me in the kitchen, her back against the fridge to accommodate the bump. "Spill, Elena. You're gray as Puget Sound fog." I crumbled then, the story pouring out in fits. Riley's affair, the motel ghosts, the way love could curdle into something unrecognizable. Jamie listened without interrupting, her hand finding mine, steady as bedrock. "That bitch," she muttered finally, not mincing words. "But listen, you're not defined by her fuck-ups. This kid, she's yours. Ours if you want." Temporary was the arrangement with me, not your heart. Her words were a balm, tentative but true. We leaned into the routine. Prenatal yoga in the living room, me spotting her downward dogs. Grocery runs for organic kale she'd pretend to like. Late-night talks about my fears of motherhood in a body that still whispered doubts some mornings. Jamie shared her own scars. An ex who'd bailed when the fun wore thin. A family that loved her but questioned her choices like they were puzzles to solve. We're all just winging it, Elle. But you've got the guts of 10 people. Remember that rally? You stood up to those counter-protesters, voice shaking but steady. That's the mom Leora needs. Leora. We'd settled on the name during a snow-dusted walk through Discovery Park. Evergreens bowing under white burdens. The Salish Sea whispering below. Felt right, light in the darkness. But as holidays blurred, solstice candles flickering on our windowsill, New Year's fireworks popping over the Ferris wheel at the market, Riley's shadow loomed. She showed up unannounced on Christmas Eve, bundled in a parka dusted with flakes, a poinsettia wilting in her gloved hands. The apartment smelled of cinnamon from the cookies Jamie and I had baked, a forced festivity to drown the ache. "Can we talk?" Riley's voice cracked, eyes red-rimmed from more than windburn. Jamie excused herself to the bedroom, belly leading the way, but not before shooting me a look that said your call, warrior. We sat on the fire escape, city lights twinkling like distant regrets, the chill nipping at my skirt hem. "I'm done with Kay," Riley started, words tumbling. "Therapy's kicking my ass. Turns out I was scared shitless of becoming a parent. The shelter, the kids there. It dragged up my own crap, my mom bailing when I was 10. I projected it all onto us. Honesty, raw and ragged, but I felt the old walls rising. You broke us, Ree. Swore it was temporary, then made me the fool in our own story." She reached for my hand, and I let her, for a moment, her fingers cold but familiar. "Let me fix it, please, for Leora." We didn't reconcile that night, but the door cracked open, a sliver of possibility amid the frost. Riley started showing up for appointments again, tentative bridges built over coffee at Victrola, where baristas knew our orders by heart. Jamie played referee, her blunt humor defusing tensions. If you hurt her again, I'll name the kid after my most hated ex. Tragedy. Laughter returned, brittle at first, then genuine, as we prepped the nursery in the spare room. Walls painted sage green, a mobile of paper cranes Riley hung with trembling hands. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through mulch, and Jamie's due date circled like a hawk. My body, once a battleground, now thrummed with anticipation. Not the physical carry, but the emotional freight. I'd catch myself in mirrors, tracing the softening lines of my face, wondering if motherhood would rewrite the script. Riley and I danced around it, dates squeezed between ultrasounds. Dim sum in the ID, where steam rose like unspoken apologies, or kayaking on Lake Union at sunset, paddles dipping in sync. "I see you, Elena," she'd say, unprompted, as if reading my silences. The woman, the mother, all of it. Progress, fragile as cherry blossoms. But betrayal's echo lingers, a low hum under the joy. One April afternoon, as Jamie napped and Riley ran errands, I found an old voicemail on my phone. Kay's number? Deleted but not erased. "Tell Riley she's a coward. You deserve better." Venom, but truth's sharp underbelly. I deleted it, but the seed of doubt sprouted. Was Riley's return genuine? Or just guilt's temporary fix? Jamie woke then, groaning about Braxton Hicks, and pulled me onto the couch. Earth to L, kids practicing for the World Cup in here. We laughed, her hand guiding mine to the flutter, and in that kick, I felt anchored. Temporary or not, this was real. As May bloomed riotous, the high-risk flags waved, Jamie's blood pressure spiking, the OB insisting on bed rest. We tag-teamed. Riley cooking lackluster but loving lasagnas. Me reading aloud from The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. Words weaving our fractured tapestry. The shelter gave Riley leave, her focus sharpening on us. On the crib assembly that ended in giggles and glue gun burns. "We're gonna be okay," she whispered one night. Our bodies entwined under quilts stitched by my abuela. A relic from pre-transition days in East LA before I'd fled to the Northwest's embrace. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But as contractions teased early, the real storm gathered, not weather, but the kind that rips families asunder. The false alarms came like taunts from a capricious god. Contractions that built to a crescendo only to fizzle, leaving Jamie cursing in a puddle of false hope and me pacing the apartment like a caged panther. Seattle's June draped itself in reluctant sun, breaking through clouds to gild the evergreens. But inside, tension coiled tighter than the ferry ropes at the docks. Riley had moved back in by then, her duffel unpacked in a quiet ceremony of folded sweaters and tentative kisses. But the air hummed with the unsaid. We'd attend couples counseling at a queer-friendly clinic in Belltown, unpacking the affair like surgeons excising a tumor. Boundaries, the therapist droned, her glasses perched like a judge's gavel. Trust rebuilt brick by brick. Riley nodded, earnest, her hand finding mine under the table, but I'd catch her gaze drifting to the window, to the sound's endless churn, and wonder if she was anchoring or adrift. Jamie, bless her, was our North Star. Sassy even as swelling turned her ankles to balloons. "If this kid pops out early, I'm blaming your drama, Elena," she'd quip from her throne of pillows. Remote in one hand, ginger ale in the other. We'd binge Schitt's Creek for levity. Moira's wig's a welcome distraction, but her eyes would soften when Leora's kicks synced to the theme song. "Feels like she's dancing in there," Jamie said once, voice thick. "Your girl knows her daddies, moms, whatever, family." The slip hung, a reminder of the labels we'd bent and broken, but it warmed me. Transition had stripped me of easy categories, but here, in this borrowed womb, I was simply Elena. Partner, almost parent, survivor. The betrayal's ghost reared mid-month, when Kay appeared at the shelter's doorstep, disheveled, eyes wild, begging Riley for one last talk. I was there volunteering, shelving donations in the back room, when voices escalated. Riley's low pleas, Kay's shrill accusations. "You promised to help me leave him. Him, the boyfriend she'd fled, the cycle Riley had unwittingly fed. I stepped in, heart pounding like bass at a warehouse rave, placing myself between them. Enough. She's not your lifeline. Kay's glare raked me, venomous. You think you're saving her? She's just like me, running from herself. The words landed like shrapnel, echoing my own pre-Riley chaos. But I held firm, ushering her out into the drizzle. Riley collapsed against me in the alley after, sobs racking her frame. I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping, but I was hiding. From us. From this. We stood there, rain mingling with tears, and for the first time, I believed her contrition wasn't temporary. Then fight for it, I said, fierce. For Leora. For me. That night marked a pivot. Riley dove into amends, letters to Kay's caseworker, boundaries etched in stone, and nightly check-ins where we'd air grievances over herbal tea. I was scared of losing myself in motherhood, she confessed, vulnerability cracking her voice. Like my mom did, pouring everything into us kids until she vanished. I shared my fears too. The dysphoria echoes that whispered not enough on bad days. The societal side-eye awaiting a trans mom in parent-teacher conferences. But we're enough, she countered, pulling me close. Together. Intimacy reignited. Not frantic but foundational. Lazy mornings tangled in sheets. Her lips brushing the constellation of freckles across my collarbone. Affirmations whispered like prayers. Jamie's water broke on a Friday the 13th, fitting with its undercurrent of superstition, during rush hour on the 8 bus from her checkup. Chaos. Panicked calls, me screeching to a halt in traffic, Riley white-knuckling the wheel as we raced to Swedish Medical Center. Labor hit hard, no easing in. Jamie gripped the bed rails, blue hair plastered to her forehead, cursing creatively enough to make the nurses blush. This is what you get for wanting a summer baby, she gasped between pushes. But her eyes locked on mine, fierce solidarity. Riley paced the hall, fetching ice chips and enduring Lama's horror stories from fellow dads-to-be. Straight ones, mostly, casting curious glances our way. Go in, she urged finally, pressing my hand. She's asking for you. The delivery room was a symphony of urgency. Monitors beeping staccato, Dr. Ramirez's calm commands cutting through Jamie's guttural roars. I held her hand, whispering encouragements. You're a fucking rock star, Jay. As sweat beaded on her brow. Riley hovered at the periphery, her presence a quiet anchor. Hours blurred. 4, 5. Until the doctor's gloved hands signaled the endgame. One more, Jamie. Big one. And then, the world shifted. Leora emerged in a rush of fluid and fury, her cry a clarion call that drowned the room's din. They placed her on Jamie's chest first, tiny and Vernix slick, fists flailing like she was already protesting the cold. Jamie wept, exhausted elation, murmuring, Hey, little warrior, welcome to the mess. But the hook, the moment that rewrote everything, came when they turned to me. Cleaned and swaddled, Leora was laid in my arms, her weight a revelation, warm and wriggling against the gown I donned like armor. Your daughter, Elena, the nurse said softly, and time fractured. Riley's face blurred through my tears, her hand on my shoulder, but it was Jamie's voice that pierced. Look at you, a mother. Not temporary, not borrowed. Mine. The room spun with the enormity. Love's raw alchemy, transmuting pain into purpose. Yet climax lurks in quiet aftermaths. As we wheeled Jamie to recovery, Riley lingered by the nursery window, staring at the rows of bassinets like a man before a firing squad. I joined her, Leora bundled against me, and felt the tremor in her stance. She turned, eyes haunted. I can't. I thought I could, but seeing her, it's too much. The fear's back. What if I ruin her? Panic crested, her confession crashing. The affair wasn't just one. Kay had been a symptom, a string of temporaries stretching back months, a spiral she'd hidden even from therapy. I love you, but I'm not ready for this. For us like this. Betrayal's second wave, tidal and merciless. I clutched Leora tighter, her milky scent grounding me as Riley backed away, apologies dissolving into the fluorescent hum. "Go," I whispered, voice steel amid the shatter. "But don't come back until you're whole." She fled then, into the hospital's labyrinthine halls, leaving echoes. Jamie found me later in the dim-lit room, Leora nursing from a bottle with fierce determination. "What happened?" she asked, propping herself up, pain meds slurring her edges. I spilled it all, the relapse, the flight, and she pulled me into a one-armed hug, careful of wires and wounds. "Fuck her. You've got this. We've got this." In that vow, alliance forged anew, not temporary, but tenacious. The first weeks post-birth blurred into a haze of diapers and delirium, Seattle's July sun mocking our indoor exile with its relentless cheer filtering through half-drawn blinds. Leora was a marvel, storm-gray eyes like Riley's, a tuft of dark hair that curled damp against her fontanelle, and a cry that could summon whales from the deep. Jamie stayed on, her temporary extended indefinitely, crashing in the nursery-turned-nursery with a bassinet squeezed beside her air mattress. "Anti-privileges," she declared, but it was more. Solidarity, a buffer against the void Riley's absence carved. The shelter sent flowers, orchids, resilient and rooted, and cards from the kids she championed, but no word from her. Radio silence, save for a single text on day 3. "Congrats, Mama. She's beautiful. Working on me. Love always." I archived it, unread after the first line, focusing instead on the tangible. Leora's latch on the pumped bottles, her gummy smiles that lit the dimmest afternoons. Motherhood hit like a freight train. Exhilarating, exhausting, edged with the sharp tang of solitude. My body, still adjusting to the hormonal cocktail of transition plus new mom adrenaline, rebelled with night sweats and phantom pains, but holding Leora quelled the storm. We'd rock in the glider Riley had assembled, Jamie humming folk tunes off-key. Blackbird became our anthem, while I nursed doubts as much as milk. Was I enough? The trans mom in a world of nuclear family ads. The partner ditched at the altar of fear? Bookstore shifts dropped to part-time, colleagues covering with casseroles and crib mobiles. Their quiet support a reminder that chosen family outshines blood. Jamie and I fell into a rhythm, a platonic partnership born of necessity and affection. Mornings, her brewing coffee strong enough to wake the dead, me burping Leora over my shoulder while scrolling adoption forums. No, not for us, but for the narratives that normalized our patchwork. Afternoons, walks to California Anderson Park, where drag queens fed ducks and joggers nodded hellos. Leora's stroller a chariot through the urban wild. "You're a natural," Jamie said one golden evening, as we watched a busker strum Hallelujah near the fountain. "The way you anticipate her cries? Like you were made for this." I laughed, bittersweet. "Or broken into it." Transition was round one. "This is the rematch." She bumped my hip gently. "And you're winning. Don't let her ghost tell you different." Riley's ghost, indeed. Whispers reached us via mutuals. She'd quit the shelter, holed up in a sublet near Green Lake, throwing herself into intensive therapy and temp gigs at coffee carts. Healing, they called it, but from my vantage it looked like evasion, another temporary until the heat faded. The climax crested mid-August, a humid night when thunder rumbled like unresolved thunder in my chest. Leora fussed with colic, her wails sinking to the storm's fury, and Jamie, bleary-eyed, suggested a drive. Clear the air, literally. We bundled up, rain sheeting the windshield as I navigated to Riley's address. A craftsman tucked among hydrangeas, porch light flickering like a hesitant beacon. She answered on the second knock, hair tousled, in an oversized tee that swallowed her frame. Shock widened her eyes, then softened at Leora, asleep against my chest in the sling. Jamie. God. Jamie crossed her arms, barrier firm. Your move, cuz. We're not here for tea. We stepped inside, the space sparse. Unpacked boxes, a therapist's brochure on the counter. Riley led us to the living room, a sagging couch facing rain-lashed windows. I've been a coward, she started, voice raw. The affairs, the running, it's my pattern from mom onward. Therapy's peeling it back. Fear of abandonment twisted into preemptive strikes. Tears tracked her cheeks, unashamed. But seeing you three gutted me. I want in. If you'll have me. The room thickened with the weight. Conflicts crescendo, where forgiveness teeters on forgiveness's edge. I shifted Leora, her warmth a talisman. You swore temporary, then shattered it. How do I trust you're not just chasing the high of redemption? Jamie nodded, silent sentinel. Riley knelt then, not dramatic but desperate, hands outstretched. You don't yet, but let me earn it. Weekends at the park. Diaper duty. Whatever. I'm all in, Elena. For the woman who taught me love isn't a lease. Vulnerability poured, laced with specifics. Letters she'd written to Kay, severing ties. A journal chronicling her me work, pages offered like olive branches. I wavered, heart a battlefield. Betrayal's scars versus love's stubborn pulse. Jamie caught my eye, her nod subtle. Your call. Thunder cracked outside, illuminating Riley's face, etched with the same resolve I'd seen at our first rally. Okay. I breathed finally. Trial run. No promises. But show up, really show up. Relief flooded her. A sob escaping as she rose to trace Leora's cheek. Reverent. Jamie exhaled, tension uncoiling. Don't fuck it up, Ree. This kid's got superpowers already. The months unspooled from there, tentative as new growth after fire. Riley inched back. Supervised visits evolving to overnights, her hands steadying bottles, her laughter coaxing Leora's first coups. We co-parented in the cracks, counseling trios now, unpacking the triad's tangles. Jamie, ever the nomad, prepped her Portland return but lingered, weaving herself into our lore as godmother eternal. Temporary was the pregnancy, she said at her farewell barbecue in September, grill smoke curling skyward. This, permanent ink. Hugs lingered, promises exchanged under harvest moon. By fall's turn, leaves carpeting Broadway in fire, we'd stitched a new normal. Riley and I renewed vows, not legal, but ours. In a backyard ceremony at the bookstore, fairy lights strung like stars, Leora gurgling from Jamie's lap. No more temporaries, Riley vowed. Ring slipping onto my finger, simple silver etched with light. I echoed it, voice steady. Endless us. Humanistic, this ending not flawless, but forged in fire's honesty. Motherhood reshaped me, not into perfection but presence. Trans, tired, triumphant. Leora toddles now, into Seattle's embrace. Parades and parks, where rainbows fly unapologetic. Riley falters sometimes, old fears flickering. But we catch each other, hands linked against the squall. And Jamie? She visits, blue hair faded to teal, tales of new adventures, always with a toy for her bonus niece. We swore it temporary once, but love, like the Salish sea, defies such shallow measures. Deep, enduring, alive with possibility. In the quiet nights, Leora at my breast, pumped, but mine. I whisper to the dark, we're here, we're whole. And for the first time it feels like truth.